Well, hi, a very good morning, everyone. I'm Tarun Khurana here. I'm from Khurana and Khurana IP Attorneys, and I have Vinay and Vivek with me on the session as well. A very, very good morning on a Saturday, and welcome everyone. We'll start sharp at 11 o'clock, but we can have a quick discussion on any aspect or any expectations that you have from the webinar, and we'll try to address those questions as well. Up at 11 now, I would want to welcome formally my colleagues Vinay and Vivek from LdotR, and very warm welcome to them. They'll obviously be the main speakers for this particular webinar, so wanted to welcome them. It's a very sensitive and an important topic, not only in today's times, but in times in general. We've always struggled with Chinese companies and Indian companies, global companies trying to register brand names and domain names in the respective names, and then monitoring them and enforcing such brand name becomes extremely difficult at a global level domain, and some US entities having corresponding .in, .co.in domain names being registered in India by an Indian entity, or in the .com or in the .net space. There are thousands of such top level domains that are existing, and therefore the opportunities for people to play wrong are significant, and therefore this session comes very timely and importantly, because it's not a very widely spoken out topic in general, and most companies don't take it as seriously as it should be. And therefore I think it was important for us to get Vinay and Vivek, who specialize in not only in domain names in general, but in monitoring of digital assets of various brands and global companies across different portals and platforms. So it's not only about domain names that we'll be talking about and how to secure oneself, but we'll also be talking about how, for example, can you protect yourself on e-commerce websites or on platforms that are search engine platforms, or on social media websites or platforms, so as to prevent or minimize the misuse of your brand names. We have ourselves being a law firm with almost about 180 professionals across the 10 offices. We very continuously handle a lot of domain name issues where Indian entities register .in or .co.in or .com, and then the clients internationally either have to file a civil suit here in India to sort of take an action, or either file an INDRP or a UDRP complaint, depending on the domain name and context. And we as a firm ourselves are doing about 3 to 4 such complaints on a monthly basis. So at a pan-India basis, we can just imagine how significant this practice is in terms of just the domain name part of it. And that too at an enforcement level, which probably is not more than 5 or 6% of the global domain names that are actually even being concerned or monitored. And that too is at a high level. Even 5% is a much higher level. And only large companies can really afford to implement their practices at UDRP and have the right enforcement strategy. I think even apart from domain names, use of brand names or similar brand names on e-commerce platforms. We've, for example, done some representation for certain very large mobile phone manufacturers, where there were entities in India that were using the same the name of the same entities and sort of selling either counterfeit products, or they were selling products which were parallelly imported from China or from Japan. And when there was an issue of this nature, then there were civil suits which were filed up, and then we were injunctions were sort of obtained out. But by that time, so much of material was already sold out, not even by the main key platforms of e-commerce, but by hundreds of other second, third tier e-commerce platforms, which probably we wouldn't have even heard of. But they sell battery banks, and they sell laptop chargers, and they sell mobile phone accessories in the name of the main brands, and then try to create a ruckus. And when the product actually lands up, every consumer obviously believes that it's coming from the main owner. And hence, I think understanding of how misuse of such brands and how we can control it on not only e-commerce platform, also on social media platforms, also on other platforms. For example, we've done some work with Agarwal Movers and Packers, and they have a terrible job at hand where thousands of such entities register on Google as regards free Google listings are concerned, or are on Just Dial. and they make their listings on Just Dial, and then eventually people call up, and it's either Agarwal AGAR or people use AGRA. So there are just so many permutations and combinations that they'll just give you a mobile phone number. People will call in, they'll collect the stuff that needs to be packed up and transported, and the truck will never then show up at all. So the whole stuff completely goes out of the supply chain ecosystem. So and Agarwal Packers and Movers are just one example. There are so many entities where so much of such listing happens. People trust the brand names. They'll call up. We've had issues with Portal Alpatab on that nature. We've had issues with many other entities where superfluous entities with similar names will get created, and the service will be rendered by them instead by the actual owner. And hence, wanted to take this session forward and let the experts speak on this issue. And I would invite Vinay, Vivek to maybe one by one give a very quick background, not only about LdotR but also about their own personal experience and and their the breadth at which the kind of work that they've done in the past, and then we'll take the session forward from there.
Hi, Tarun. About LdotR, I'll cover over time, but a brief introduction about myself. I have been in the online information space for almost 24 years now. I have worked with large corporations like LexisNexis, Wolters Kluwer, Thomson Reuters. That's where my last corporate assignment was. After that, I've been an entrepreneur, dabbling in a few startups, and Vivek and I set up LdotR, and we'll talk of why we did it in the course of the discussion. Vivek, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Tarun, for the warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be here. I've been working in this field for about 10 years now. I started my journey in this with Geo, where I set up the branding and the whole digital strategy aspect of the company. Worked as a consultant across a lot of countries in the ASEAN region, and realized there is a big gap in the market of this kind of service, especially in this part of the world. And that's why we decided to do something about it and set up our service. So happy to talk about it and happy to be here.
Perfect. Could you give a quick background about what LdotR does? How long has it been in existence, and what are the key areas where you I understand that there are certain services which probably will be not that easy for everybody on the platform to understand. So if you could just simplify it out and explain what the entity does end to end.
Sure. So let me just start with the background about, I'll just start with some background and I'll set the stage for not just webinar, for the webinar, but also what we do at LdotR and who we are. So Tarun, thanks for all the introduction, and thank you for hosting this webinar. We are really honored to be participating in this. Like we all know, the internet is evolving and growing in all directions every single day, and it is changing the way businesses operate in the modern age. As early as 2005, the Pulitzer Award winner journalist Thomas Friedman wrote that the convergence of new technology, new ways of doing business, removal of economic and political obstructions, and rapid introduction of 1 million of young Chinese, Indian, and Eastern European professionals into the world economy has leveled up or flattened the global playing field. And keep in mind, this was said by Friedman long before we had millions of users on either Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or other social sites that we see these days. Not only these sites represent a channel for most of the big brands to reach out to their customers, a lot of businesses would not even exist if these were not there. So it is very, very fascinating and also very vitally important for us to consider what is coming next in this digital age. And we at LdotR believe that the simplification or the change in the domain name ending is actually a disruptive event in the internet space. The liberalization of the domain extensions allows for consumers, governments, organizations, communities, and brand holders to actually use different suffixes. So things like .nike, .sbi, .geo, .web, .shop, or even .dog is a big game changer. And actually, businesses have already registered close to around 33 million domain names in the new generic top-level domain. This rapid growth and represents a transformational change within a very complex and dynamic ecosystem, an ecosystem that changes and evolves at a very rapid pace. LdotR is a business that actually assists organizations be present, protected, and prosperous on the internet. We operate in the online brand protection space, helping our customers protect website traffic, online revenues, and most importantly, find and eliminate cyber frauds and risk against brand. The business was started by my co-founder Vivek and me around 3 years ago. because what we realized that though there were services and a lot of players in the market, but these services did not cater to the unique needs of the Indian market. So Vivek and I, because we had done work in our early organizations in the online space, thought it might be good if we created a bespoke service for the Indian market. And we did that. And we currently work with some leading brands across Asia and the ASEAN region, helping them being present, protected, and prosperous on the internet. So this is in a nutshell what we do, and we can talk of more of this.
So how have the digital channels sort of expanded in the last few years? What kind of new top-level domains have come? Maybe if you could just also introduce what top-level domains are in general, and what kind of new top-level domains have come, and with example, probably give some instances of how companies can use such top-level domains to even protect their interests and also to further enhance their own visibility.
So, like I mentioned, the internet is changing in my earlier answer, Tarun. But what is also happening that there are lots and lots of social media channels or channels available to organizations like Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter, Reddit, and there'll be more over time coming. But as far as the domain names are concerned, until 2012, there were close to around 300 domains that were available to brand owners to register. 22 of which were, as we call them in the industry parlance, top-level domains or TLDs, which is the right of the dot. So 22 of them, which were namely .com, .org, .net, .edu, .international, which is INT, and these were 22 available, and there were close to around 280 CCTLDs available, which is country code top-level domains, which represent different geographies. So things like .in for India, .sg for Singapore, .pk, .us. So there were only 300 possible domain extensions that were possible for brand owners until 2012. But 12th of January 2012, things drastically changed. ICANN, which is our International Corporation for Assigned Names and Numbers, which governs the internet, asked people to put in applications for what domain names they would like to offer to customers or have. So there were close to around 1,930 or 1,930 applications that were received, out of which 1,235 have been completed, 12 are under process, and the rest either withdrew or they were not approved or did not proceed. So these new GTLDs include extensions like .bar, .press, .tech, .bank, .xyz, and a lot of them, and also some brand owners actually applied for domain extension that they would like to use for themselves. So some Indian ones like .bbc, .barclays, .nike, and others. So there's already a discussion about a possible new application round happening in 2021, which would again, from the current 1,700 examples.
Thanks, Vinay. I'll just reiterate a point. So what is a TLD? A TLD, as Vinay said, is a top-level domain. So when you have a URL, say www.google.com, the com part is called the right of the dot and is called a top-level domain. Now, a lot of us who at any point of time have tried to register a domain name have realized that all the good ones are gone, especially under .com. And that was a challenge a lot of businesses and a lot of people were facing back in 2012 when they were trying to put their service out there on the internet, and they would realize that all the good domain names and the relevant ones have been taken by people way back in 93, 95 for the sole aim of making money. So in order to expand the domain addressing system and to give people more choice, the new GTLDs were introduced, and it was successful beyond ICANN's wildest dreams. They had not even imagined that they would receive such a response given how expensive it was to do. But they received a lot of applications, and we are still seeing new top-level domains being introduced every month now. In terms of giving what were these applications for, people came up with all kinds of names and extensions. A lot of them applied for common terms so as to make them popular, such as .best, B-E-S-T, .VIP, .top, .xyz, .club. These are the more popular ones that are currently active and receive a lot of registrations. Besides that, there were a lot of industry-specific ones. So for example, for fitness, there is .fit, .fitness, .health, For artists, there is .art. And there are very restrictive ones as well, such as .bank, which is more from a security point of view, because not everybody can acquire a .bank. You have to be a registered bank in a country and prove that to be able to get a .bank extension. Then there was city specific. So cities which were proud and have a lot of businesses applied for their city names, such as .London, .NYC, .Miami. And these extensions were reserved only for businesses or people who would reside or work in that city. So as to give them a local flavor, make them proud of the city that they work in, and tell people exactly what this business is about. Profession-specific TLDs were also launched. So given there are so many participants are lawyers, .lawyer is available. You can also register something .legal, .attorney, and .associates. Now, what a lot of us take for granted is that top-level domains and the internet addressing system is based on English language or the Latin characters. But a lot of people in the world do not speak English or work in their local language. So to help those people access the internet and be more comfortable with it, IDNs were also introduced, which is internationalized domain names. That means you can have a domain name in your local script. So for example, today, people living in India can register a domain, a brand name or their personal name .Bharat, where Bharat is written in the Devanagari script. Similarly, there are about 10, 11 more languages or scripts in India that have also been introduced, wherein you can register a .Bharat. Similarly, there is .Sangatan, which can also be registered. So besides Devanagari script, languages across the world have now been enabled so that you can register a domain name in that local language, in that local script, and make internet accessible to people who are not comfortable with English and the Latin characters. So even though there are so many of them out there, the uptake has been slow. Only about 25 of the top level domains today have more than 100,000 registrations, right? But there are more than 1100 TLDs. So there's a long tail. Some of them have as few as 3,000 registrations over the course of last couple of years that they have been active. And more and new TLDs are being added every month now. So in the next few months, you will see the introduction of TLDs such as .dealer, .select, .compare, .CYOU. And these are going to be in the sunrise period, enabling businesses and brands to have the first right of refusal if they are in TMCH. And we'll talk about it some more. Just to give you a flavor that these top level domains are not inferior to a .com. Right? I'll give you some examples, Tarun, as you asked, of some of them which have been very popular. So home.loans, that domain name was sold for $500,000. And you can imagine the popularity of it. If you are in the home loan business and you own the domain name home.loans, you are the only one who owns that. And it gives you instant recognition. The.club, casino.online. Google's parent company ABC registered abc.xyz to showcase the breadth of their services. Vacation.rentals, wine.club. These are some of the very few examples where we see the power of new GTLDs and how it has enabled businesses to separate themselves from the herd of .coms and country code TLDs and stand apart.
Fantastic. So excellent. Thanks, Vinay and Gus, for that. With so many digital channels coming up, and how are people and how are entities misusing it? And as a brand owner, what do I do if tomorrow one of the Tata Group companies goes and registers .Tata, or some other third party goes ahead and registers with the .Tata GTLD as and when it may come, or even with Tata.dealer, for example. So as a brand owner, do I actually need to go and register for all of these GTLDs? Because that's going to be a very expensive and cumbersome process. How do I protect my interests so that even if I'm not owning that domain name, nobody else also gets the leverage of going ahead and using it or misappropriating it?
Yeah. So the challenge that you have mentioned is quite real, and businesses were afraid of it. See, just like digital world, new GTLDs were also a boon and a bane. While it gave you a lot of opportunities to separate yourself from the herd, it also became problematic for brands. Earlier, they only had to protect themselves within the 22 top level domains and the GTA and the CCTLDs, which is the country code top level domains that they may be active in. Now they had to worry about infringements across thousands of TLDs. So that is why a lot of processes were put in place to help businesses protect themselves with it. Because, like you rightly said, Tarun, acquiring each and every combination is not practical and it's not feasible. You just can't do it because you can't think of every possible combination that somebody would use to infringe on your brand and go ahead and register that. It's not economically viable. It's not economically feasible. And when businesses think that all these top level domains and all are challenging, what they only know is the tip of the iceberg. The challenge is much, much, much more larger than what they know of or what they think of. And the challenge is not only restricted to consumer facing brands. The challenge is as real for a business to business brand as it is for a business to a consumer brand. Because trademarks are territorial. You are protected in the territory in which you have a trademark, but internet is global and it is very difficult to attach a geopolitical location to where the threat is happening from, because there are so many different components that are involved in enabling or in running an online digital system that it is very difficult to pinpoint which one is the keystone to bringing it down. Right? So in order to help businesses with this, a new program called TMCH was introduced by ICANN almost at the same time as the new GTLTs were brought in. So TMCH stands for Trademark Clearing House, and it is kind of a central database which enables brands to put in their trademark, register the trademark, so they get protection across the world, across all new GTLDs, irrespective of the country or the class in which you own a trademark.
I see. And could you give an example of how it would work? I mean, some real life examples, if you could give with respect to certain Indian entities.
Yeah. So I was working with Geo when we had applied for all for the top level domains for brands. So we applied for .geo, .ral, and .reliance in order to protect them and to utilize them for the businesses. So let's take an example of LdotR and in TMCH. So if I enter LdotR into the TMCH database, then I have primarily three big benefits from it. The first one being, whenever a new top level domain is launched into the market, I have the first right of refusal. So suppose .dealer is launched, right? And if I have an entry in the trademark clearinghouse database, I have the right to register L.R.dealer. Nobody else in the world without an entry in the trademark clearinghouse can register a domain name matching their brand name during the first phase of the launch. So this gives me first right of refusal. So if my brand name is a very common term, then I am immediately protected, because if I think that that top level domain is of use to me, then I can immediately register it without paying a premium or without having to buy it from somebody by paying a premium. Right? The second benefit that happens is that if somebody else tries to infringe on my brand, if somebody tries to register a domain name which is matching my brand name, they get a warning. So they will see a flash on their screen which says, you might be infringing on somebody's trademark. Are you willing to accept this? If so, click here and then proceed to registration. In our experience, about 80 to 90% of the people do not move forward because they are not looking to infringe on somebody's brand and they back off. And the third and the most relevant of this is, once a top level domain is launched, for the life of the top level domain, if anybody ever registers a domain name which matches your brand or one of the keywords that you have entered into the trademark clearinghouse database, you will immediately be informed that somebody has registered a registered a domain name which is matching your brand name. And this gives you immediate notification and helps you take the relevant action to protect your brand immediately. As compared to you sitting and you not knowing what is happening with your brand in the new GTLD space, it tells you that this is happening, and then you can decide whether you want to take action against it or not.
So there's a question, Vivek, from Sheetal. It says that does it mean that the ICANN will not register a domain name unless that name is also registered with the TMCH?
Sheetal, let me answer it in two parts. First, ICANN never registers a domain name. ICANN is only a governing body. Secondly, this TMCH is only applicable for new GTLDs. And thirdly, you can only brands which have entry in the TMCH can register a domain name in the new top level domains during the sunrise period of each. So whenever a new top level domain is launched, for the first month or so is a special period called sunrise period. During that period, only entries in TMCH can register a domain, nobody else. After the 1 month is over, then it is open up to the public and then anybody can register. I hope that answers your question.
We can take up more questions before we sort of slightly move away and make the discussion broader, not only restricted on domain names. If there are any question, maybe on the audio or maybe on the chat, feel free to ask before we sort of slightly move on and broaden the scope. Yeah, so there's another one. Can you read that as well, Vivek? I think it will help you understand it better.
Sure. It says, sir, what is statutory remedies for international infringement? Is there any jurisdiction defined? That's a $1 million question. Jurisdictions are generally not that applicable when it comes to the internet, because how do you define a jurisdiction? Is it where the company running the service is registered? Is it where the person running the service is living? Is there where the servers are kept? So it's very difficult. That is why TMCH is a global database. It is not restricted to a particular country. You can have a trademark in any part of the world, in any country, in any class, and you will be given rights across all top level domains across the world.
And also, in addition to that, we can always, irrespective of where the domain name is registered and who the owner is, which you can always get the details of from the whois, you can always file a UDRP complaint, which is irrespective of the jurisdiction in which the domain name is registered, and it's only for selected domains like .co.in or .in, for example, where you will have to file a complaint at the INDRP. But otherwise, for all major GTLDs, you can always go to the UDRP irrespective of where the infringement is taking in place from. Another question from Danish coming in. Please throw some light on CCTLDs as well. Could you do that today?
Sure. So CCTLDs stands for country code top level domains. Every country in the world has been given right by ICANN to run and manage their own top level domain, which is a 2-word top level domain. So there's a quick way to understand it. If the top level domain has 2 letters in it, it's a CCTLD. If it has more than 2, it could be a GTLD or a legacy top level domain. So take an example, .in. .in is a CCTLD which is governed and run by NICSI, which is part of the Indian government. They have complete rights on it. They can do whatever they like with this top level domain, and ICANN has no say in that matter. So every country runs it in a different manner. I'll give you a few examples. .tk, which is a top level domain, is available for free. You can register a .tk for free without paying any charges for it. And it is very popular. I mean, after CN, which stands for China, it is the second most popular CCTLD in the world because it's free. .io is also a CCTLD, but they have made it open. So it is not restricted to people living in that country. So IO is a very popular top level domain for tech companies. .ai is also a CCTLD, but it has been open. So anybody can register a .ai, and it is very popular, as you can imagine, with companies working in artificial intelligence. Since CCTLDs belong to a particular country, their management and their dispute resolution process is only governed by that country. They can decide how they want to do it. Just like Tarun said, for .in disputes, you have to file an INDRP because that's the mandate that NICSI has put in place.
All right, because there are no further questions. Now, going a little broader from here, Vinay, could you indicate some kind of usual frauds that take place as regards brands are concerned in the online space, in the digital space in general? Maybe with some examples, if you could sort of show in some frauds, and we'll then try to go into slightly more details from there.
Sure, Tarun, I will do that. So there are lots of fraud that happen on the internet. Like we said, that the channels are growing. So not just governments, communities, and people or brands are using this. So are fraudsters doing it. So they see an opportunity to make money, work on the internet to defraud people, and either get their credentials or data or get money itself. So from a timing perspective of when and how frauds happen, we possibly classify them into three broad categories. The first would be perennial, which keep happening all the year round. There's no specific timing for them to happen. So these are frauds like phishing, malware attack that happen. So phishing essentially happens when either a link is sent to you on an email, or when you click on a link on SMS, on WhatsApp, where they try and either capture your credentials so that they can get hold of your information that they can use at a later date, or try and get access to your bank account or others to defraud you. Malware attacks are the other kind of attack that happen, which usually come up through pop-ups or through email software that are sent to you, and these essentially would be in forms of either ransomware, or there would be spyware that sit on your computer and try and rob your data. There are other kinds of fraud that happen, and these happen more on the social media sites where people run campaigns or contests and say that you won a particular contest. It could be Facebook, Instagram, or others. And if you pay them some money as either an upfront fee or a delivery charge, the bigger price could come to you. We've also seen a lot of recruitment fraud happening. This is a global phenomenon. So in India, some of our customers have cases where people land up in their office with an appointment letter saying, we are supposed to join today. We paid money to this agent so that we get this job. So that happens quite a lot. And there are a lot of distributor frauds that happen. And one of our companies that we work with is a white label ATM company that sets up ATMs across the country in tier 2, tier 3 cities. Somebody set up a website which is quite similar looking to theirs, and we're inviting people to put in applications and pay some upfront money so that they could set up their ATM in their location and pay them a monthly rental over the next few months. So that is, these frauds happen perennially. Then there are some seasonal fraud that happen, which happen at a particular time of a year or a calendar. So things like around festivals, New Year, Diwali, Christmas, where offers are given to people and say that you've won a bumper prize, or this is a Diwali offer, this is a Christmas offer again, and people fall for it usually. And at times also, like, income tax filing happens. So people are sent emails or sent links saying that there's a refund that is due to you. Why don't you click on this link, fill in these details to get the refund? So they essentially try and capture your PAN number, your Aadhaar card, or credentials of your bank account. And last are event-based fraud that happen around a particular event, which is top of the mind of everybody. So things like some frauds happening around COVID, which we can talk of later also. Or, so I don't know how many of you remember, in 2015, there was a movie called The Martian, where an astronaut was sent in space and he landed up on Mars, but then his spaceship was not working and he couldn't come back. So at that particular time, there was an email going out to people saying, our astronaut is stuck in space, please donate money so that we can kind of get him back. And there are a lot of people who actually donated money. So these people, it's very easy to set up these frauds. You just need an email ID or buy a domain name. And even if few people give you, say, 1,000 rupees, 2,000 rupees, you've made your money. So they're not looking for big bucks. They just blast out the email, and there's some gullible people who would say, astronaut is stuck on Mars, and pay 5,000 rupees to get him back to India or whichever country he's from. So these are the usual frauds that we do from a timing basis that we see.
What do you do, I mean, at a larger level for large e-commerce level frauds that might be taking place where people are sort of misappropriating the brand name? You know, if there's an XYZ brand name being sold by a seller, another seller comes and uses his brand name or a brand name similar to his, and then you go to Amazon, you show his your registration certificate on the trademark side, and they then put you down. Any other any other measures by means of which the brand owners can be more vigilant, apart from obviously being more reactive? Once some sort of wrong has happened, they will maybe in a day or 2 days or 3 days of time or sooner, depending on their bandwidth, they'll go to the e-commerce player, or maybe the social media, report some sort of anomaly or misappropriation, or some counterfeit activity. Anything else apart from this that they can be vigilant? Because you guys are in the digital asset management space, so you look at infringements at a broader level. How do you go about if an entity, any brand owner comes to you and says that I want to do a due diligence in the online space, what's correct, what's going on correct for me, what's not? How would you approach such a problem? If you could just sort of give in some guidelines around it.
Sure, Tarun.
Tarun, sorry, this is Sheetal. May I just ask a very quick question?
Please, ma'am.
So with regard, I'm sorry, I'm still on TMCH. So it says on the website, because I'm not an expert in this domain name, so therefore some couple of questions I have. So it says that TMCH is not a trademark registry, which means essentially it is a separate sort of a house where I as a person can go and get my name registered. What if trademark registry has rejected my trade name, but I end up putting it in the TMCH and also get a domain name? How does it work, I mean, in that scenario? Or is it very important to have a registered trademark first and then get on board with TMCH?
So Sheetal, I think you have answered your question. Yes, you have to have a registered trademark to be able to get access to have an entry into the trademark clearinghouse database. Besides this, the trademark clearinghouse database also allows a few other instances. Suppose your trademark has been ratified by a court order, where it says that yes, you have the common law trademark for this. You can also use that to get an entry. But 99% of cases, you have to have a valid trademark certificate to get an entry in the trademark clearinghouse database. And they also keep a track of when your trademark expires. So if in India, you generally get it for 10 years. If in the 9th year you apply and you do not share a new certificate at the end of the year, they will invalidate your trademark clearinghouse entry.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.
And is it only the domicile country looked into, Vivek, on that front? I mean, if you're an Indian entity, would they only be bothered about your Indian trademark, or any other registration outside India as well would be equally comforting for TMCH?
Any registration in any part of the world, they don't check your domicile.
So, Tarun, a lot of brands do this. What happens is, because they want to get into the TMCH, and say if India is taking too long, they know jurisdictions where it's easy to get a trademark. They just go register the trademark there and get into the TMCH. So a lot of people try and do that also.
Sorry, this is Smita. I'm going back to the trademark, domain registration. So I have one question. There are many domain has been registered, which is similar to the already our brand domain registration, right? So is there, means they are majorly because they want to sell or something like that. So we do take the due diligence and we file a complaint in Nixie or in .com somewhere. But there is one domain which is used, which is very similar to us. Mostly the non-used domain can be taken care of by Nixie. But if it is used, then how we can protect it? How we can take any action against such kind of domain which has already been used?
So Smita, even there, I can give you an illustration of a case and separately also send you an order on a case that we had handled. This is for a company called WinRAR. That you would have heard of WinZip, right? Which is for the there's another company called WinRAR that competes with it in the same space, and there was a WinRAR.in registration here in India. And WinRAR.com registration, as a matter of fact, and then the main owner had win-rar.com. And then when WinRAR.com was also being used by the Indian entity, and they had actually, before we started, we filed the second UDRP complaint against WinRAR.com, an Indian entity which was based in Mumbai. And the first one, the client, which was the original WinRAR person had actually lost on certain grounds that they didn't probably raise during the UDRP matter. But then by virtue of the fact that there is the cross-border reputation, the fact that there is a malintent in which with which the registration was done, the fact that he's using it, but there was no need for him to be doing it online. So for example, in our case, his domain name was winrar.com, but he was saying that I'm using it because I'm using Win, road assistance repair. So he was basically a puncher guy who was basically who had just blocked the domain name, and there was obviously somebody sitting behind him. But the justification that came in is that I just have a single one-page website to indicate to people that I can actually put a puncher in one small nook and corner of Mumbai. So there are grounds on the basis of which you can very easily challenge the domain name, even if that domain is being used by an entity. And there are certain grounds that you'll have to justify. You'll have to say that I have a trademark registered, that guy doesn't have a trademark, I'm using it extensively, I have cross-border reputation, he has used it with the inappropriate. He has, for example, a lot of times these people who are the actual owners have multiple other registrations, some of which have already been sold out, some of which are open for sale. That also becomes a very strong argument that his habitual intent is to show that he's using, but he's actually not using it. And the intent of registration was just to create a simple one page, but actually at the end of the day, sell it at a later point in time. So there are many ways by means.
So the domain complaint will suffice, or we have to file an infringement suit?
No, so you can file a UDRP complaint. I mean, again, that depends on the commercials. You could equally file a civil suit in the High Court of Mumbai or in Delhi as well, depending again on where the entity is based out of. But if it's in a Chinese entity, for example, who is registered a .in, you will not be able to file it, because for the civil suit to be filed, it will have to be filed in China for that matter. And in which cases, if it's a .in, NIXI, INDRP are the most cost-effective procedures to take place. But otherwise, even UDRP comparative to a civil suit will be a far more inexpensive process.
Okay, Vivek. Yeah, you can go ahead, Vivek. Bye.
Smita, I'll just add a few lines to this. See, first of all, you should check how many domains are actually registered which use your trademark or your brand name. That's the first step you should do, because in a lot of businesses, this process is not done methodically, right? Somebody somehow saw this and informed the team that this is happening and they know now. Generally what happens, you only know the tip of the iceberg. You only know one or two. If you start to look at, you might find that there are hundreds of domains that are registered using your brand name or trademark. Second step you do is that you assess them. You find out which one of these are registered and are just kept. That person is hoping to sell those to you in a future date. You just keep on monitoring them to make sure that they don't actively hurt your consumer or your customers or your brand. Once you find the ones that are actually infringing and hurting your consumers and are pretending to be you actively by either putting up a website or sending out millions of emails, those are the ones that you take action against. Okay. Then you have two decisions. One, do you want to take ownership of the domain, or do you just want that website to be shut down? If you want to take ownership of that domain and keep on renewing that domain year after year, then you file a court case, a civil suit, or an INDRP or a UDRP. Because remember, at the end of the day, that domain will then come with you, right? Okay. If you only want the website to be shut down, if you only want the domain to be suspended, then there are other processes in place that you can utilize and have a much faster remedy, so that the website is shut down, so that the email running on is shut down, and you get immediate relief.
So what are those processes?
Smita, it's the processes are dependent on a case-by-case basis. So depending on what your domain name is, where is it registered, who is it registered with, where is the website hosted, who's hosting the website, who is the owner of the website, depending on that, we can reach out to the right person in the whole chain of that website being active, and then use that to shut down that website. It's not something simple that I can explain on a webinar.
Okay, not an issue. Yeah.
But basically, for example, go to the registrar, go to GoDaddy's of the world, or maybe a level up for that matter at the higher registry level platforms, and then sort of file a complaint against them. Perhaps on that level, but correctly, as Vivek said, difficult to explain it over an initial webinar like this. couple of questions that have been parked up.
Thank you.
Quickly, if you can.
Hi, this is Saurabh. Can I intervene and ask a question?
Sure, sure.
So, like you were saying, I mean, the idea is to protect a domain. And if you are a common or a very popular domain, you will have domain registrars like GoDaddy and BlackRock offering domain names that are very similar to yours at a very cheap rate. Now, this will give access to domain squatters as well, like you rightly pointed out. But what is the remedy that you would suggest a brand can sort of take up to ensure that these domain registrars are not offering domain names like this? So I'll tell you where I'm coming from. So even if we were to go and file a complaint with this domain registrar saying that, look, you have sold this domain name to XYZ person because the identity is hidden on who is, then they obviously don't take any action. Then we are compelled to go to court. So what would your thoughts be around that?
I'll take a first crack at it, and then maybe Tarun and Vinay, you can chip in. So, Saurabh, first answer I would say is you cannot prevent a registrar from offering a domain for sale, because a domain does not exist till it is searched or it is registered. Till then, you can think of anything, and only when you actually type it into a registrar's portal and search for it does that domain name come into existence. You cannot ask all the registrars in the world to prohibit people from registering any version of a domain that matches your trademark, right? That cannot be done. So you have two strategies in front of you. One, depending on the business that you are in, you register a selective number of domain names as part of your digital asset acquisition strategy so that they are available to you for use and you prevent others from misuse. And please be mindful, I'm not saying to register all permutations across all TLDs. That's just not feasible. The second thing that you do is that you constantly monitor the domain registrations happening across the world so that if some domain is registered which matches or tries to infringe on your brand name or your trademark, you can take an appropriate action on it. And TMCH is obviously your first line of defense, that if you have an entry into TMCH, you can to a level prevent and get first right of refusal for new GTA.
Sorry, from my perspective, although I'm personally not aware of any case law to this effect, and there were many case laws even on the e-commerce platform side where before the Snapdeal and the Flipkart case, that the judgment that came in from Justice Pratibha Singh, say early last year sometime, which obviously put a lot of responsibility of misuse of brands on the e-commerce platforms as well, which they were earlier saying that they'll not be responsible for. That obviously that order was sort of not upheld and sort of reversed out in the DB a few weeks or a month or two back. But I think if you have one potential, to me, I mean, we've not tested it, but to me, it is worth attempting for filing a civil suit in one of the appropriate courts with a lot of unnamed defendants, and try to take a blanket order for one or more registrars, at least if not for all the GTLDs, but for a defined set of CCTLDs, for example. That and an order of that. We haven't seen that coming in. Obviously, Vivek says that it's not possible, but I'm saying perhaps nobody has attempted it till date. And therefore, if you have one defendant, and then you have an unnamed defendant, and then you could sort of file a civil suit and take an order that GoDaddy not be allowed to register for exactly the same domain name at a particular CCTLD. So a particular registrar for a particular CCTLD. To that effect, because it's not a very, very broad order to that effect, and it's exactly for the same trademark. It's not really for all the trademarks or all the GTLDs or similar trademarks, for example. It may be a worthwhile proposition to file a civil suit from that perspective, so as to prevent the registration in the first place itself.
So, Tarun, there is an example of this happening in the past. One of the brand that we work with actually got a John Doe order from the High Court of Calcutta. But again, the challenge that we ran into, because like Vivek has explained, that the internet ecosystem is so dispersed. The person could actually be in Sri Lanka buying a domain in the US and then using a brand name. They had a huge challenge on enforcing it because they never knew who to enforce it against. So Yeah, that is possible. But if you know who the person behind it is, and like you mentioned that there was this gentleman who had a puncture repair shop and was the face, so things like that you run into a lot of time. So it usually has to be a combination, like Vivek said, that you have to look at the entire ecosystem and see what is the quickest and easiest. So sometimes it just you use the register whoever you want to, and sort of in our experience, what has happened is what Vivek was mentioning is once a brand starts enforcing, so what we see is people then don't go after the brand because most of these guys are expecting to sell to you and make money eventually. But if they see that you have taken an enforcement action and shut a particular website down and you keep doing it over a period of time, then people say, oh, it's not worth our while to actually chase this brand because they are very proactively looking for infringements and taking action against them. And then these fraudsters move to different brands who are not enforcing or who are not watching out for the brands on the internet. So that has been our experience. So you can use a combination and whatever works best, and depending on what you would like to do, these options are available to brand owners.
Thanks all. Why I brought this question was because we've tried to do exactly that, and unfortunately, why I asked you this question is because we sent a complaint to BlackRock. They blocked the website, and then later on, GoDaddy from the backend, after about 10 days, deactivated it again. And it is an objectionable website. I am not going to take the name, which is very similar to our domain, but it was objectionable. It had adult content on it. So obviously, from a brand perspective, it was hitting us. What we've already thought of John Doe actions. While we were working on it, I think we got hit by this COVID and this entire scenario. But in our experience, what has happened, and we enforce our trademark a lot, and we've done that in the past 1.5 years very successfully. But what has happened is that when you drag GoDaddy to court at that time, the first day they will appear and they will say, "Yeah, we'll take it down," and that's the issue. So they don't want to complicate their life by contesting a litigation. So they just come and back down in court, and then we are back to square one after say about a month or so. Fine, thanks.
Sorry, you will find this challenge because see, there are over 900 registrars in the world, right? There are many more resellers in the world, right? So going after registrar to ask them not to register a domain which matches your brand name would be a tall order. Like Tarun said, you can give it a shot for CCTLDs, you might be more successful. But the idea here is simple. We shut down a website. It might come up again, but we constantly monitor the domain name and other domain names that might come up. The moment it comes up, we shut it down again. You have to remember that every time that person is putting the website up, he or she is losing some money because you have to pay to host a website. Once you do that repeatedly and the person is not able to make money off it, they will leave you be and go to other brands. And we have seen this time and time again in the brands we work with. When we started off with a company, they knew of 2 infringements that they came to us. They said, these are the 2 ones that we want to shut down. We said, allow us 2 days. We searched the internet and we found 62 domain names that were infringing and had active content on those websites. We started shutting them down. Within weeks, we saw the repeat infringement drop down by 70%. Within 3 months, they had only 1 or 2 websites coming up on a monthly basis. After a few days, they had no more websites coming up which are infringing on their brand name. So the only strategy is repeated enforcement and action on it so that they lose money and they will leave you alone.
Plus the John Doe orders also are time sensitive. They'll always tell you that either the e-commerce platform or the digital asset platform has to sort of put down the brand name in 48 hours or 24 hours. And therefore, if the non-compliance again would be a strong contender. So they are also very sensitive about these things. So the more pressure you create on them and the more due diligence that you do, have a guy internally who monitors it on a regular basis, or but sooner you get it because you have a John Doe. And if the John Doe fortunately is registrar agnostic and also CCTLD or TLD agnostic, then I think you've got a very good order, and most Indian registrars at least will sort of abide by it.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, so a couple of questions. We'll just quickly take them up before we move on to the remaining set of questions. Danish should ask, please let us know the procedure to file the complaints against the cyber squatters and CCTLDs. Is this something that you can take, Vivek, right now, or should we park it for a later time? Because INDRP procedure would essentially be there, and then perhaps filing a complaint at the registrars, right?
For CCTLDs, you will have to find what is the procedure laid down by each of those CCTLDs to file a complaint case. For Indian, it's INDRP. For different countries, it's different, and we can talk in detail afterwards.
Karthik has a question on trademark registration, especially in India. Do take some time to generate certificate. What is the process of getting protection during this period? So as we had discussed, that perhaps you can get a foreign registration in the US or in from the EU IPO, and then sort of try to use that trademark registration at the THCM, right?
Yes.
Gary has a question. Is there any other method to remove conflicting links in the marketplace platforms other than sending them cease and desist and take down notice? Please specify. Then I think apart from these two is to sort of take a John Doe order and then use that order repeatedly across multiple platforms to try and take them down. Anything apart from these measures?
No, Tarun. I think what you said covers it all. You just have to make sure that you take the onus of monitoring these marketplaces, and as soon as you identify infringements, you have to take the necessary action to shut them down.
But at a LdotR level, do you have some automatic algorithms to detect such misuse on an instance basis? Because that is probably far more effective than doing it manually, right? How much can you do?
Of course. That is what our strength is.
So how do you, what all is the scope of coverage? I mean, how many e-commerce platforms, how many search platforms, how many social media platforms? Could you give a broad sense of what all do you cover in those algorithms to identify breaches?
Sure. So we cover all the top level domains in the world. As of now, we have about 360 million domain names registered in the world. We scan through all of them, plus new domains that are registered. So that covers the domains and the websites and the email systems that might be running on that. When it comes to e-commerce platforms, we do all the major and minor e-commerce platforms in the world. See, a lot of e-commerce platforms are also specific to a geography or a region. So these are the top 20 that are active in India. And if you're a company that also works in other geographies, then we identify the ones which are active in that geography and add it to our algorithm to search through. Same is for social media platforms. So we do all the major ones and the minor ones which are active in the region in which you operate. And we also do app stores. So when people think that Google and iOS are the two major app stores, there are many other app stores that are active in different parts of the world, which might also be infringing on your brand and trademark. So we monitor all of them. We use algorithms that do not actually just match direct matches, but also fuzzy matches. So think of a brand like L.R, which says LDOTR. You can replace the O in the dot with a 0. And in certain fonts, it looks the same. People don't know whether it's different, but computer knows it's different. So these are the kind of cases where people use to abuse the brand, send out mass emails, giving a link where it looks like the brand name is correct, but it is not. So our system can search through all of that.
So Prashant has a question, like public search is available for trademark. Is there any portal to know look-alike domain names, for example?
No.
You'll have to run algorithms to sort of
search through it. There is no public.
If a brand comes to you, then how much time do you take to sort of do a comprehensive reporting on it? I mean, through the algorithms is what I'm saying. Say a day or 2 days, is it?
Yeah, 48 hours. Yeah.
Hi Vivek, Ekant this side. I have a question which is one step ahead what Saurabh asked. So there are a lot of frauds that are happening through social media platforms.
Can Rishabh please mute their thing? Thank you. Ekant, please go on.
Yeah, so there are a lot of phishing frauds that are happening through social media platforms.
Yeah.
And the biggest challenge that we face while taking action against such infringers is that when we approach such social media platforms and say that this handle or this page that have been created on your social media platform is infringing my trademark, they simply revert to us by stating that as per their trademark policy, it looks fine to them. And then the only alternate option that are left out with us is filing John Doe, which is not cost effective.
Correct.
So is there any cost effective measure that we can take against these social media platforms?
Ekant, I would say taking any action against the social media platforms is again gonna run up the cost problem for you. So these are huge companies and with a team of legal professionals sitting for this. What we generally find success is that, see, all of these social media platforms have the trademark policies and different policies to prevent abuse, right? And there is a, depending on case by case method, you have to find the right way to make a complaint. So because of how the number of complaints we file, we know that in this case, saying that it is doing this will not work. But if we rephrase it and saying that they are doing this in this way, then it will work. So experience and knowing what those people are actually looking for in an application, in a complaint, to take action on their end is what helps us get success. Because see, you have to realize on their end, the people who are receiving these complaints are not necessarily lawyers. Those are people who have been given a manual and say, if you find that it checks these 3 things, then you take it down. If not, then just repeat with this order. And there are thousands sitting there and doing that because they receive millions of complaints. So knowing the process intimately and having the experience of doing that will help you increase your hit rate.
Okay.
So the one more question. I think we've covered most of the other aspects that I wanted to cover, unless Vivek and Vinay have certain other thoughts in mind that they wanted to convey. But let us take a couple of last questions that are there. Dr. Balakrishnan asks, for unregistered trademarks, we need to proceed only with passing off or any other alternate method. Domain name infringement is more likely in India. Why is there no policy for it? I think it's a theoretical question, the answer to which will take a good deliberation over a couple of drinks, I understand. So let's sort of park it for the moment. Mary has another question. Do we need a specific software to identify conflicting marks in the marketplace on a daily basis, like a crawler? Yeah, so that is what Mary, I think Vivek and Vinay was saying, that they have internal proprietary algorithms which take the brand as an input and will then do a lot of permutation combination on the brand, try to make as many variants thereof, and then run that across all the database that they have in terms of all the top level, all the main social media, all the main social networking websites, including all the domain names, obviously all the domains, all the GTLDs, CCTLDs in that sense. And then in about 2 days of time, revert back to you with all the misuse that might be taking place of the brand, and then maybe prioritize it out in terms of what is high priority for you at this point, and then go. Am I missing anything there, Vivek?
No, Tarun, you said it right. It's a very comprehensive way to, there is no software that is available. And at the end of the day, it's not only the software, it's the people who are running that software which are key. Because the people doing the infringement are also using human intelligence. So you need to have human intelligence at the other end also to take action and identify them. So we use 2-step process. One, we run the algorithm which identifies these, and then we have trained individuals who assess it to see what is the level of threat, and then you report to the companies and with actions that can be taken against them.
Thank you, Vivek.
You're welcome, Mary.
Fantastic. So any last thoughts? Because I looked at the other things that I had in mind, but almost everything is sort of been covered up, and we're already at 12 o'clock in that sense. So any last comments that you had in mind, Vinay and Vivek, that you wanted to put forth?
I think like what Vivek has mentioned, it's very important that any brand should have a strategy that they should put in place, because there might be an instance that people report out to them and then they take action. So for any brand to be cautious and know what's happening, they should use a service or internally use a team which looks for what's happening, so that they're more proactive than being reactive. And when you're reactive, you're only looking at a very small part of the whole problem that you have. So like Vivek said, it's only the tip of the iceberg you're looking at. And that's why it's very important that you have a process in place which looks at the entire problem and then identifies what you need to take action against, so that it has a domino effect on the entire ecosystem rather than just that infringement that you're taking. Vivek, I'll hand over to you to add points to this.
I would say that just like companies and teams manage their trademark portfolio very diligently, you make sure that you keep a track of what has been registered, what is expiring and all. You need to do the same level of work for your digital assets, which are becoming more and more important now. you need to know what are the domains that have been registered by the company, because domains, what happens, different people register them and there is no central process which keeps track of them. Digital assets are very crucial for not only usage point of view, but also from prevention point of view. So you need to have a policy in place so that you know who is going to register domains, who is going to manage them, who is going to keep a track of them, who is going to let them go, right? Social media handles, again, very relevant. Don't only keep track of the ones you're using, but also the other ones that you have registered to prevent them from misuse, right? These are important assets for a company and should be treated at par with other digital assets that you have, and have a proper policy in place to manage them, acquire them, and release them.
Fantastic. Any last minute questions anybody has, maybe over the chat? Just have like the last 30 seconds. Vaibhav?
So before we close, I was wondering if Vivek can share how are people using the COVID pandemic to defraud people. Maybe that might be relevant because that was a part of the topic of the webinar.
Good point, Vinay. So COVID is something unprecedented. We, most of our lifetimes, have never seen a pandemic before, and we are seeing this for the first time. And there's a very popular saying in political circles, not to offend anybody, but it says that never let a good crisis go to waste. And cyber squatters and cyber criminals across the world are making use of it to their best. Right? There are so many. In the last 3 months, more than 137,000 domains have been registered, which contain the word COVID, Corona, virus, or vaccines. People are flooded with emails selling fake products, fake hand sanitizers, fake personal protective equipments. And the worst of it, people are selling fake vaccines and medicines to cure Corona. And this problem is becoming so big that there has been an informal group formed internationally. We are working with them to help brands, businesses, and consumers not fall victim to this, to identify them and shut them down. So for all these people on the call here, please inform everybody you know that if they receive an email saying, this is from World Health Organization, please click here to check the status. Or this is an image of your colleague who is infected with Corona. Please find out and let us know, we can tell you more. Please ignore and immediately inform your IT security team to take action and block these. It's very important that we all work together to make sure that people do not fall victim to such scams.
But there's another question, Vivek, from Karthik. Do you want to take that?
Sure. The question says, many times we see people sending cross-border business proposals requests which ultimately come out to be fake. So is there any method to take action against these as they ultimately affect brand reputation? Yes, Karthik, what you have to identify is they are sending it as whom. Are they sending it pretending to be you? Then they're most probably using a domain which looks like or matches your brand name. And that is the step that you can take to take action against them. You can get this domain shut down. But in terms of thinking that you can identify who that person is and bring them to court or to justice is a far cry. You will not be able to do that, because in today's world, to identify who the person is, they only need to have an email address. And to identify who that person is from an email address is a long shot and a lot of hard work. So it's better to shut them down. And like I said, repeated enforcement gives you better results in protecting your brand than going long against one enforcement.
Vaibhav, I think we'll park this question for the next session because we are sort of past the time in that sense, and certain people had committed that they will be available only for that 1 hour in context. So this last question we'll take up at a certain time, or perhaps you can email that to us, and we'll try and answer that. But thank you very much, Vivek. Thank you very much, Vinay, for your time. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining in. It was a pleasure. We will be posting this on YouTube as well. It will also get posted on LdotR's and ours LinkedIn page as well. And please feel free to ask any further questions. The emails can be sent out to any of us, and we'll sort of communicate accordingly. Thank you very much for your time. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Tarun.